for the class. We're going to finish up with chapter 33. This is part 3, and in this part 3, we will talk about the termination of an agency relationship. There are 2 ways an agency may terminate. One way is through an act of the parties. Let me advance the slide and I'll come right back. Right. And the second way is by operation of law. Right. So those are your 2 ways when you're looking at a situation to try to determine whether or how the parties have terminated. Look for either act of the parties or operation of law. All right. Regarding act of the parties, there are several different acts that we could find that would terminate the agency. The first one here is lapse of time. And all that means is that there's been time that has passed. The agreement might have stated that the agency will be in effect for a year, and once that year passes, the agency ends. All right. So over the course of time, the act of the parties has been agreed upon earlier, but over the course of time, we have a termination. All right. Second and third are somewhat similar, right? The agency could be set up with a certain goal in mind, a certain objective in mind. And so once that purpose or objective is accomplished, once a certain event, maybe the sale of a property occurs, then there's no longer a need for the agency, and the agency will terminate. Fourth way on the screen here is an agreement. Certainly, if there's an agency that is still operational and both parties agree that they're going to terminate their relationship, that could be done maybe with a principal and a manager, let's say. Whether it's property manager or if you happen to have someone that represents you, maybe your talent and you have an agent that represents you and you now want to terminate your relationship. That can be worked out. That can be negotiated, and that would be an act of the parties that terminates the agency. All right. Now, one party can also terminate the relationship. The law does not require that people remain bound to each other. All right. Now, we might always have the power to get out of an agency relationship. We may not have the right. And so what that means is that there could be some liability for leaving an agency relationship. Maybe the term has not run out, something like that. And so the right might not be present, and therefore there would be legal liability, which normally would translate into probably some money is owed. All right. All right. Now, there are some other terms that you might use to describe when one party terminates the agency. I don't ask you to learn these terms for purposes of our class, but in case you're interested, I have them on the screen. They are renunciation, when it's the agent who wants to walk away, and revocation, when it's the principal who wants to walk away. All right. So some new language. At least you understand that each party can just get out of the agency if they want to. The one exception to that, though, is what we call an agency coupled with an interest. Right? Agency coupled with an interest. All right. What's an example of that for you? Your book has a good example, but the easiest way to kind of remember it, and mine might be very similar to your book, is to think about when you need to raise a little money for yourself, maybe, and you pawn an item. You take something valuable, I don't know, I want to say a guitar, or you take the silver candlesticks or something, and you go to a pawn shop, and what happens there is you give the item over to the pawnbroker. They give you some cash for it, and the arrangement is that you'll have 30 days, let's say, to come back, repay the money, and get your item back. Repay the money with a little interest probably, and get your item back. And if you do not come back to get it, the item, the pawnbroker can sell your item, all right, and use the funds raised that way, that through the sale, to pay back the loan that was made to you, the person who pawned the item. All right. Now that would be a pretty good example of an agency coupled with an interest, because what you are doing when you borrow the money and you leave your item at the pawnbroker is you are authorizing, you're making that pawnbroker your agent to sell that item and at some point, all right, and use the funds to repay the loan, and then they get to keep the rest. So the thing is, you cannot terminate that arrangement with the pawnbroker until what? Until you have repaid, okay, the money that the pawnbroker has given you for the item. All right. So you see how it's an agency. You set up the pawnbroker as your agent, but it's coupled with an interest. The pawnbroker has an interest in your item, and you cannot terminate that until that interest is taken care of. All right. So that's an agency coupled with an interest. All right. All right. Getting close to the last slide, but the point here is when we do have a termination, you've been with me long enough, you've studied the law now over one whole semester, going on almost a semester and a half, you realize that notice is always required whenever we do anything, all right? So in the termination of this agency, you're required to give notice to the agent. If you're the principal, you got to give it to the agent, and also to third parties who know about the agency. There is no particular form required. It could be just a written, informal document. All right. And notice to your agent, if you're the principal, may be constructive or actual. All right. Actual is the most reliable because you're going to make sure you find your agent, you hand over the notice, and you know the agent got the notice. Actual is direct, okay? Constructive notice is indirect, all right? It'll be a placement of a notice maybe in a publication, whether that's online or it's a print, magazine or something like that. Just telling people that are interested, including your agent, that there no longer is there an agency relationship, all right? Or it could be posting a notice at a construction site or something like that, or at the outlet that you might have, or in the office space that you might have. Okay, so that's what we mean by constructive as an indirect notice. All right, this is our last slide now, and we're going to look at the second way that an agency might terminate. This would be by operation of law, and so we just have here 5 different possible ways that if these events occur, the agency will be terminated. So first we have death or insanity. If either principal or agent die or lose their competence, I don't think it necessarily means that they just go crazy, all right, but they lack competence, then operation of law will kick in and there'll be no more agency relationship. All right. Impossibility just refers to the task that the agent has been hired to do. If that now becomes impossible due to circumstances, or if there's a change of circumstances, that so it's no longer possible or necessary for this work to be done anymore, that can be by operation of law, a termination by operation of law. All right. Number 4, bankruptcy. If either principal or agent should become insolvent, the agency relationship will terminate. And last one, I think, requires some very specific facts, and maybe it's kind of a carryover from, centuries ago when war was fought, a lot more on the battlefield. All right. Any outbreak of war between the principal and the agent's countries, that would automatically terminate any agency relationship that there might be. All right. This now brings us to the end of the unit on agency law. And next week, we'll start an entirely new subject. We're going to be looking at negotiable instruments, which is covered by the Uniform Commercial Code, Article 3. It'll be entirely different from what we have worked on so far this semester. All right, so I will be seeing you soon. I'm going to close out my video.